Yes, I can hear you.
And there you go. You kick us off with the first one. Say you have to come off mute, or you're on
That's
mute.
that's right.
All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Um, time check here. We're at half the hour, and so let's go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome. Will and I are definitely excited that you're all here with us today to talk about AI agents, what they are, why they matter, and most importantly, how they can unlock real business value.
Yeah, we know AI is here. You're seeing it in all the headlines, every vendor pitch deck. But quite frankly, there's a gap between what the hype is and the reality. So what our goal is today is to kind of help bridge that gap.
And so we'll define, what are AI agents? What are they really? Walk through the 5 building blocks that you need for success, and then show you how to launch your first one in just 30 days.
And like I said before, this is going to be interactive. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. And also, we'll have a point where we kind of engage with you along the way. So think of this as a conversation versus death by PowerPoint. How about that?
Yep, that's a great point. And with that, let's just jump in and start addressing the gaps between the AI hype and true business value. But before we do that, I want to ask a question that, and if everyone could put it a yes or no in the chat. How many of you are currently experimenting with AI tools in your organization? So if you want to, just say, yes or no. This way, we'll get a good indication of, what everyone's doing out there.
Seeing quite a few yeses.
Awesome. That's great. All right. So why are we here? All right. Let's be real for a quick second. AI has been everywhere lately. I mean, right? We see it. If you're on LinkedIn, there's posts about it all the time. There's posts about people's getting rejected from jobs because AI is doing some crazy things. So we see the good and the bad. But every headline, every conference, every vendor pitch, we're seeing it. But with all that hype, we have to ask how much of it is actually translates into business value. This is where organizations are struggling right now. All right, every organization out there is struggling. Separating that noise from what's truly useful, and that's why we're here to sort of bridge that gap.
Yeah, exactly, Scott. I mean, to step on your toes, but we're seeing it. A lot of our clients, they buy into this AI vision. And they don't have a clear roadmap defined, and then that creates frustration. And leaders want results. They don't want buzzwords. We implement. We want real results. And so that's where I feel, or we feel, that agents really come in. They're not a theoretical concept. They're a practical way for you to get value out of AI. So I think of it, and we think of it as a group and organization, as a not just a flashy concept, but agents help you to get work done. They're action oriented. They don't just produce word salad. So these actions, or the action and outcomes that they produce, they're directly tied to your business processes. And that way you can drive measurable outcomes.
So today's conversation, again, we want to make it conversational, isn't just general AI. It's about usable AI. And so we're going to walk through how to turn those AI agents into that are hype into something tangible. And hopefully by the end, you'll be able to see how to take those real world steps towards applying them in your business.
Yeah, our goal is real simple, guys. We want to help you kind of see past the AI hype. We know where we are in the hype cycle, and really help you understand more specifically the AI agents and help you to put a roadmap on putting them together so you can practice this in your own organization so you can see the real business value.
All right. So here's how we're going to spend our time together today. What are AI agents? Right. So defining those, the 5 building blocks for success that we've identified that have really helped out our clients along the way. along with that 30-day launch plan that we talked about a little bit earlier. Along the way, we'll sprinkle in some real world use cases, and then last but not least, keys to success and what would be your next steps.
We'll also share some client user stories and, give you a heads up on the common pitfalls, the what's, the what nots to do, and really provide a practical guide. And so our goal here is to kind of leave you with some clarity and a blueprint on how you can build and develop these agents.
Yeah. So quick question for anyone, if they want to put anything in the chat. All right. Has anyone here do they already have a use case in mind where you feel an AI agent would help you out personally or your organization? Feel free to drop it in the chat if you want. If not, no worries.
We'll wait.
Yep. We'll wait a second. We need like the Jeopardy theme song. All right. Well, let's go ahead as everyone's putting that in there, and we'll definitely follow up with these use cases as folks are going through. I'm sure there's going to be. It seems like we're getting some really good ones in there about procurement and sales funnel activation. Great use cases that we're seeing come through. Let's take a step back first and talk about and look at how intelligence and business systems has really evolved over time, because this just didn't come up last year, right? It's been around for a while. At least
Right.
the talk of AI.
Right. We all seen the reports, or we had reports in our CRM systems or data systems. Those are basically just static snapshots of data, right? But they give you that historical insights and information for you to make those decisions. Then remember, we had these beautiful things called dashboards, which kind of gave us that real-time visibility into our data to see what was going on.
Yeah. And then really from there, right? Well, I mean, we talked about, now we got into descriptive analytics, understanding trends, and then after that really came predictive AI, which really gives us the ability to forecast and recognize patterns before they actually happened.
Yeah. And then you'll notice that we hit this area here where we highlight prescriptive type agents. So these gave us analytics into our systems that didn't just show us patterns, but they gave us actions. Hey, here's what's going on, but here's what you need to do next. So AI agents, though, they took it a step further. They didn't just tell us how to do it. They told us what to do and why. Then we executed on that.
And then beyond agents, we're moving towards that adaptive systems that continuously optimize, and ultimately a world of collaborative AI where humans and AI co-create intelligence together, not where AI is taking over the world and replacing all of us and our jobs.
It's not just a historical highlight of like tech progression. It's not just what it is. It's actually a maturity curve of how we interpret intelligence, how organizations use that intelligence to grow and increase revenue and hit whatever metrics that the organization has defined. And now with AI agents, this is a huge leap from insights to actual business outcomes.
So think about, I mean, a good question here is, and you don't have to put it in chat, but where would you place your organization today on this sort of evolution of intelligence? Are you still mainly using dashboards? Are you experimenting with anything predictive or prescriptive, or are you already deploying AI agents into your organization in various departments and to solve real world problems? Right? So, what is an AI agent? Here's our definition. There's plenty of definitions out there. We could probably debate it for hours upon hours. But an AI agent is an autonomous assistant that has, with goals, rules, and data designed to act on your behalf.
Yeah, they automate realistically repetitive tasks. I'm looking through the chat here and I'm like about to make a comment about that. But these agents really help us with automating the repetitive task. They make the decision making a lot faster. And quite honestly, you have the ability to ground and put in guardrails to enforce consistency. So this really frees people up from having to focus on the smaller tasks to focusing on bigger, higher value items in their daily day work.
Yep. For example, I like the one that Will Gardner put in the chat, order entry, OCR for PO entry into ERP systems. Great use case in terms of, proactively using AI. All the other ones are great as well, but I just happened to see that one because it was up on my screen. And then picture this, right? Here's another example. A new customer record comes into your system. The agent checks for duplicates because maybe, you don't have duplicate detection on, or maybe it came in through an integration. But it checks for duplicates, it enriches the profile, assigns an owner based on some rules and logic or whatever else is happening or other data points within the system, and even drafts an intro email. How many hours does that save, and how much accuracy, the level of accuracy, does that improve within your organization and your database?
And think of it too, Scott, critically, um, these LLMs, these agents, they're really like our digital teammates. They're not tools you constantly have to micromanage. They're really our teammates to help us out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And well, remember this, it's not about replacing staff, right? And I've said this before on
Facts.
LinkedIn. It's about augmentation, giving your people more time to do the things that really move the needle.
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, how many of us had to do as consultants or developers those smaller tasks that just ate up a lot of time, right? When
Oh yeah.
ChatGPT first came out, we used it as a way for us to produce words at a faster rate. And then we saw the value in it for summarizations. Now we want it to be more actionable, and we still use them. We're not being replaced, but we use them to help get our work done. It's just what they're here to do.
Yep. Absolutely. So
So,
what is not an AI, an AI agent?
yeah, I want to clear up a misconception, right? They're not just chatbots, right? Chatbots react. The agents that we're building are there to act. They're not just predictive models, because prediction without action is quite frankly just a waste of time. You still have to act. And they're not here to replace human beings. They're here to help us, to augment our experiment, to make it our experience, to make it better. So that's just what we have to kind of help people understand and level set what agents are not.
And well, that last point is crucial. AI agents are co-pilots. They're not pilots. They take on the repeatable tasks so that folks like us can focus on strategy, creativity, building relationships with, those in our organization, our customers, our vendors, whomever it may be. We saw this in field service, for example. A technician wasn't replaced by an agent, but instead the agent pre-checked part availability, helped with compliance paperwork so that the tech could focus on the customer to get more and got more jobs done per day. And and of course, what's the key element of that? The customer satisfaction rose.
Yeah. So,
So
quick question
that
with the audience. I'll ask. I got this question. All
absolutely.
right. Would it make a difference for your teams if AI could handle the repetitive work so that the teams can focus on customer interactions or strategy?
Great, great question.
Yes, no.
I'm going to say obviously yes on my side, but the audience curious about what the audience will say. Um, you know, Now let's ground this in business value. Why do AI agents matter today? Right? One, they reduce, let's face it, they reduce the manual effort. So instead of us doing repetitive, time consuming tasks, we let the agents handle them. I mean, whether you're using, M365 Copilot, you're using ChatGPT, you're using Gemini, or one of the other countless AI tools out there, right? They're helping us by removing some of those time-consuming tasks, right? And think about this from a business perspective. Think about a finance team no longer having to spend hours matching up invoices. They're using AI to help them, right? So they're helping speed up decision-making processes by processing, data faster than any team really can, right? And they're ensuring consistency and compliance. Think of it, for example, a bank flagging exceptions instantly versus, having that lag time. And then finally, well, I mean, let's face it, they're freeing up teams to focus on higher value work. Service reps, for example, solve problems instead of sorting tickets.
Yeah. And Scott, again, since we work with each other, we've seen it firsthand. And remember, we had a customer service a deal and implementation for our agents and we saw that an agent basically took or triage tickets. And so this freed up the customer service reps. They didn't have to spend 20 extra minutes categorizing every ticket that they brought in. So now, because the automation that was put in place via this agent, this created a faster resolution. The customer was happy, and the employees were less burnt out. Another one of our clients, they cut the case routing time by 60%. Remember how shocked we were when we heard that? Now,
Yep.
see, that just wasn't efficiency. It freed up employees to focus on what really mattered, items at work that were more impactful. Folks, one employee told us, I got my evenings back because I'm not cleaning up data anymore, right? So that's human value, right? They help the entire experience.
Yep, absolutely. And think about, what would you do if 20% of your team's time was given back, to you and the rest of your team? I mean, where would you reinvest that capacity? I mean, just food for thought.
So this is where it gets fun. So where does Microsoft fit in this entire agentic experience? Well, their ecosystem is built for agents.
Yep.
Yeah, plain and
And
simple.
yeah, I mean, Microsoft's right in the middle of this evolution. Copilot Studio, you can, Power Automate. You have AI Foundry, Open A, Azure Open AI. Everything there that's designed for AI agents.
And since you're using these tools that are already there in the Microsoft ecosystem, you have access to these different data sources. So the integration that's critical for these agents to actually act is already present. So it's not like you're just plugging in and adding other tools. You're actually taking these agents and embedding them into a system that your customers are already using. So how many of you guys are already using the Power Platform or Dynamics today? I'm just curious. How many of you guys are already on that? Dynamics or Dataverse or the Power Platform? Good, good.
All right, quite a
I'm just
few. That's
curious,
great.
are some of you folks just using SharePoint or any other data lakes? I'm just being extra on this one.
You are extra.
I am a diva. No? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Great. Let's move on.
All right. So let's get to the 5 building blocks, right? And again, these are the 5 building blocks we see. You may see them differently. Other people you see on LinkedIn. Everyone, of course, has their methodology, and that's obviously great. At least there's a methodology out there. But this is what we're seeing regarding AI and AI agents. And every agent needs a measurable purpose. Without a goal, well, let's face it, it's just noise.
Yeah, and also too, agents are only as good as your organization's data. If the data isn't right, then you can't expect the agentic experience to work correctly. So, kind of like garbage in, garbage out. So the knowledge and context are key, and your data has to be right.
And then once the data is right, now you need guardrails to make sure the AI is operating within compliance and rules, right? We don't want, our AI agents to go hog wild and cause, and open up significant risk to your organization, right? This is how we keep trust and control over our AI agents.
Yeah. And now that brings us into the action layer. Here's the exciting part, hands up, jazz hands. This is where we start integrating with workflows, APIs, triggers, so that our agents actually are doing something, not just suggesting, hey, thanks for the data, here's what you might do, but we actually give it power to do something. So it's a big deal. That's where the fun
Yep.
comes in.
Yep. And then, of course, last but not least, we need to get the feedback, right? So iteration, all right? Agents need that continuous feedback in order to improve and adapt, right? And so that's, all these steps are really important. So the question becomes for all of you is, which of these 5 do you think will be the hardest for your organization to go ahead and implement? You can either put it in the chat or just ponder it. Either way, it's fine, but I just wanted to pose that question out there to all of you.
Or just real quick question, Samir, you had your hand up. Did you have a question about one of our previous slides, or what was your thoughts on something, sir?
Yeah, just one question, right? We are already using Copilot right now, as well as, of course, Copilot Studio as well. You know, but I think one objection against Microsoft Copilot or using this ecosystem, right, is when you want to connect other systems such as Salesforce and other things to your Copilot. Um, the objection really is that why would Microsoft make it very easy for it to, or very smooth, because then it kind of finishes the whole scope for Dynamics in future. So a lot of times they say that if you're using just the Microsoft suite, it works really well. But when it comes to connecting anything outside of that, it's not very useful. I wanted to know your view on that.
I'm actually going I'll make sure I don't take too much time on this, Scott, because this is a topic near and dear to my heart. So Samir, my response is, what's an API and what's a connector, right? Microsoft knows that they currently have they fit this much into the Dynamics or ERP or CRM market space. They are very aware of its competitors. So part of its strategy a few years back was making sure that they allowed other data sources and other actions to connect to these things. So hence you saw them acquire and use tools like Power Automate and building these APIs or connecting to these APIs a lot easier. What they did that was so awesome in the last 8-9 months, I would say with Copilot Studio, it was make it a bit more actionable and give us the ability to extend things like Power Automate into it. So you can connect to external data sources. The question is do you want to have any major transformation tool, use any transformation tools or ETL tools and tie them to that agentic experience? Most times when you're talking about ETL, you don't, that's a asynchronous process. You don't necessarily want that to be synchronous. So long story incredibly short, I think, and I know you can connect to a lot more data sources. Microsoft is leading the space when it comes to agentic capabilities. Um, if there's an API built for it, you should be able to connect to it. Um, that's why I mean I get what they have the out of the box capabilities with connecting to Salesforce, and there's a couple of other options, but for all the big players like SAP and Oracle, you can connect to them, and there's options that are available for you to make those connections. So I think it just would be more or less walking through the requirements with the customers and kind of presenting a few of those connection options. But
Yeah,
Microsoft has been very intentional with how they position themselves, and that's why they're leading the pack with this agentic experience.
thanks.
No worries.
All right.
And we can have an offline conversation. So just put your information in the chat, or just reach out to us and find us on LinkedIn, and we're more than happy to chat with you, Samir.
Sure.
Sorry about that, Scott.
That's all right. Let's move on to our first block, Will, which is the purpose.
Yeah, you can't build these agents without a real North Star. Without it, your project just floats away. It goes adrift. So you have to have a goal in mind. You can't just say, I'm going to
Yeah.
build an agent. You have to have a
Yep.
reason for it.
Absolutely. So, right, set that measurable goal like reducing routing time or cutting onboarding cycles in half, right? If you can't measure it, you can't prove value, right? Everyone wants to implement AI, but you need to have that goal so that you can prove out its value, its worth.
Yep. And where we've seen failures is where the purpose wasn't clearly defined. It was too generalized. It turns into a science project. Now you contrast that with customers who had nailed down KPIs. That's where the adoption really soared. So they have to have a clear defined um, uh, uh, scope.
Yep, absolutely. And then we get to the knowledge and content, right? So an agent is only as smart as Will said earlier, as data has access to. I say this all the time: garbage in, garbage out, right? Simple as that.
Yeah, and we're not just get. And it's not just about giving it data. As I almost went on that rant with Samir, my apologies, my friend. We don't just want to give it data. It's about providing it context. See, agents need CRM data, ERP data, SharePoint docs, Teams messages. They need that metadata to kind of make it all make sense. So we want to feed that context in the background.
Yep, absolutely. And then we
Oh,
come to our
so
favorite one, which is
guardrails.
guardrails. Yeah.
Guardrails build trust, right? You can't just let it just think or go out. It has to have those guardrails in mind. This keeps the context in line, and our guardrails keep them in line as well. But go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry about that, Scott.
No, you're good. No, absolutely. And so without them, right, you risk compliance issues or rogue actions of your agent. So it's really setting those boundaries, you know, and you know, discounts can be suggested, not approved, for example.
That is a fact. We've seen the stories where discounts were just saying, hey, airline company said, hey, here's your discount, and it wasn't valid, right? Customers were very upset. But we want to we keep these guardrails in line because this really helps them to kind of fall in line with some of the audit trails. They limit some of the actions, and it prevents kind of those human overrides. So, especially when we think about agents that'll be placed in the ERP systems or anything that is tied to finance and healthcare, you have to have these guardrails in line.
Yep. And the action layer, this is Will's near and dear, right? This is where the magic happens.
Yeah. See, agents that just observe, they're just kind of hovering around, they don't really add a whole lot of value, right? Your agents need to act. So that means integrating them with some sort of workflow, connecting them to those APIs and those other systems. You have to give it something to do.
Yep. And think of it this way: insights are wasted without execution. Action is where your ROI will happen.
Yeah. And I mentioned it before, with Microsoft, you look at Power Automate or Logic Apps. They update Dynamics records. They send Teams notifications. They trigger ERP workflows. How much value did that add? A lot, right?
Yep. And then we have the feedback loop, Will, which I know we spoke about earlier. But if you wanted to give some insight into that, that'd be great.
Yeah. I just want to do a quick heat check on time. Uh,
Oh
are we
yeah,
good on time so far? Tasha, Scott?
I believe so. Why don't we go ahead and we'll just go ahead and get through a couple of these more slides. I think we're running a smidge behind, but if everyone has time, we'll continue on.
You give us 5 more minutes, we're going to open it up for question and answer. But here, if we look at the feedback loop, this is about iteration and refinement. So you don't like necessarily what you're getting from the agent, but you want to enhance and increase the process. Now, remember, the feedback loop will also fall in line with the previous steps mentioned in our steps, our 5-step process. So it'll stay in line with the knowledge and context. It'll stay in line with those guidelines. So now you have a path, and the idea is that the more you run through these iterations, the better defined and the better your agent experience will be.
Yep. And again, that's how you're going to build that trust over time.
Yeah.
So let's get into that 30-day launch plan. All right. So how do you bring this all together quickly? And that's with a 30-day launch plan.
Yeah, it's structured into 4 weeks. They identify cases, you set up knowledge and guardrails, you build the integration, and finally you plot and monitor, and you pilot it and monitor.
Yep. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go, since we're a little short on time. We'll get these slides out for folks that are interested. But we're going to skip the some of the meat and potatoes of the different weeks here and what you need to do in terms of the knowledge and guardrails and setting up what's required for each of the weeks. But we'll certainly, if you want to drop us a private message or ping us on LinkedIn, we'll get you these slides.
Yeah.
I think the big thing I like is this slide, Will, is the pilot and monitoring, right? And so you get a small pilot, not just across the whole company. It's just a small group.
Yeah, it's where we find the most important, where we find the most value with that process with our agents. If we can we scope to the keys to the success and then kind of talk about and open it up to the floor for our audience real quick? So if we go to keys to success.
Absolutely, let's do that.
Yeah. So go ahead, Scott. I'll let you run this one if you want to.
So to wrap, right, we have 4 real main keys. One is start small and scale fast, right? Make sense. Establish that governance from day one. Integrate, don't silo this and also iterate with feedback.
Yeah, and if you miss these, your project's going to stale. You follow them, your agents will be built faster and be built within trust. So we kind of want to stick to that process and start and those steps.
Absolutely. And so this is just really your next steps. Launch your first agent in 30 days. We have another webinar coming up in October around avoiding AI pitfalls. We have a white paper on AI agents unlocking business value. You can schedule a one-on-one consultation with us and join our AI community at congruentX.com/AI-agents. So I think
If you
really
go to the next slide.
Absolutely. Let's go to it. And then go ahead.
I want to show them that. And now you can finish talking.
You go do it. You go do it. We're done. So this is for us is just big. This is just again those 2 additional webinars we have coming up, one in October, one in November. We have the link up here where you can go ahead and register to see what we're going to cover. And really it's going to bring all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah, and I hope it was a good experience. So I'm gonna leave it open if you guys want. I know we're over time, so feel free to drop if you need to. But I'm gonna stay on for a little bit if you have some questions. More than happy to answer them for you guys.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Samir.
One question. Do you have any guidelines or recommendation on when to use M365 Copilot versus Copilot Studio? Because some of the use cases, even connecting, for example, in M365 with Confluence and Jira and other things is possible. So I'm not sure when do we really need Studio.
Yeah, it's going to depend on the use case and scenario. With Studio, you have a bit more of and they just changed that. I think it was this week or last week as well, with light and full. But the reality is it's going to depend on the particular use case. In regards to some of the licensing, you're still going to need those premium connectors for those enhanced experiences. So your users may need, or if they're going to leverage Studio, they're going to need that as well. So it's going to be dependent on the. I think I look at it. I say the data source, Samir, and the use case, kind of the action you want to do. If you think it's going to be a bit more robust and a data source is going to be something that's going to require a premium connector, you're probably going to want to go with Studio. And if you want to have a little bit more flexibility in the grounding and adding of topics and things such as that, you go with Studio, if that makes any sense.
Got it. Thanks.
for building the agents. You can still
Yeah, that's
publish
what I
them in different
meant. Yeah,
channels.
because
Yeah.
once you
Yeah.
build it, it can be added to your teams and
Yeah.
other things too. But
Yep.
I think the
You have
question is
the
where do you build it?
publishing, the channels are still there. I think.
Yeah, SharePoint, websites,
Yeah.
Teams,
Yeah.
Different CRM systems. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. 100%.
All right. Any other questions from the audience?
I love these questions.
Yeah. And I think if you hopefully you found today's session valuable. I believe the next two parts will give you the frameworks and real world plays to move faster with fewer surprises. So I think, as we're seeing, AI is moving fast, right? And so we've built this series to help you stay ahead of the curve. And we'd love for you all to join us on parts 2 and 3. Again, if nothing else, then thank you all for joining today, and hopefully we'll see you at the next session.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.